We may own hundreds of shmups over dozens of consoles, but only precious few have been mastered to the point that we can call ourselves experts. For me, Airzonk, Galaga 88, and Star Fox on Super NES fit the bill, but one other game is light years beyond the rest, and longtime viewers could probably tell you which one without hesitation. Area 88, known in the West as UN Squadron, was developed by Dai-Pro and published by Capcom first to arcades in 1989, but then to the Super Famicom and Super NES in 1991. The Super Famicom version is widely regarded as the better one, despite a number of changes, especially the lack of two-player co-op. Some have said that this is a very challenging game, which I find surprising. Perhaps I take it for granted, but it got me to thinking. If I can get through this game on just one life, anyone should be able to. So in this episode of Bullet Heaven, I'm going to show you how to get through 100% of Area 88 and UN Squadron in the Japanese version of the game. I primarily use Shin Kazama for my playthroughs in the interest of upgrading my weapons as quickly as possible for speedy boss kills. However, he has the slowest recovery time. Greg Gates is a great option if players need a fast recovery time, but his weapons take forever to power up. Finally, Mickey Simon is somewhere in the middle, both for weapons and recovery, making for a more challenging playthrough than the other two. In this playthrough, I'll be using just the F8 Crusader in an effort to get the F200 Ifrit as quickly as possible. As always, players with other tastes and strategies can purchase other planes and grind for funds through the Quartermaster Corps if needed. It is also possible, though very difficult, to beat the entire game using just the F8, which is great for players looking for the ultimate challenge. Now let's get started with the playthrough. We only have access to the Crusader during the first stage, but it's easy enough. They're not needed, but we'll be using bombs to facilitate a handful of more efficient ground kills. Since Shin powers up faster than the other pilots, level 2 should be achieved right around here. There's also a hidden Mobi-chan which will clear everything from the screen. It'll take some practice to memorize the enemy formations throughout the entire game, but there's nothing especially tricky about them in the end, and stage 1 is relatively easy. In a lot of places, hugging the ground can be beneficial to avoid the larger cannons, but small enemy bullets can still hit you if you're not careful. There's a second Mobi-chan near the end of the main phase right around here that makes for a very efficient screen clear, granting a blue energy pickup worth 3 orange ones. After another small handful of enemy formations, it's time to take on the first boss. The mobile rocket battery is super easy to take down. Just stay below the main rocket fire, poking up only to take out the small homing missiles that it launches periodically. Even with a level 2 cannon, it shouldn't take long at all to destroy the battery, and the first stage will be all over. However, this is only the beginning. With the first stage out of the way, players can choose from any of these 4 stages from here, but we're going to go with the first Air Force stage, which takes place in a thunderstorm. Only bombs and the Mega Crush will be needed. This stage has much more intricate enemy patterns like MiG-23s which loop around the playfield, but nothing that can't be overcome. Be sure to uncover this Mobi-chan to take out these 6 fast-moving Eagles and their shots in a single go. MiG-21 fishbed formations will fire shots at the player on approach and on departure. There are 2 different MiG-21 patterns, both of which consist of 4 jets in either a staggered column or square formation. They can easily get swept away in one pass. It gets trickier when the Tupolev 22 backfires come onto the field. These large enemies will fire these crazy hook missiles at the player, which will eat up players' shots while other formations appear on screen. Players should be at cannon level 3 before the first backfire. 4 more Eagles will approach the player from behind right at the saxophone solo in the music. It'll be easier to memorize the formations that appear by taking the music into account, as they always tend to appear at about the same point in the BGM track every time. Another Mobichan can be found in this stage, which should help in clearing away a red MiG-23 formation and another Tu-22. The player's first extend should be obtained around here as well, so long as all of the player's opposition has been taken care of up to this point. Just before the boss, a life recovery module can be uncovered by shooting in this cloud band. Then the player should hang all the way back to the left edge of the screen with bombs selected to unload the whole thing onto the B2 Spirit. When the approach is finished and as it launches its spread shots, launch the Mega Crush for heavy damage and to get into position to shoot the Spirit from behind. The Mega Crush will grant invincibility to the player from the moment it is launched to the conclusion of its effects. This invincibility is incredibly useful for certain bosses later down the line. It will take practice, but it's definitely doable. After being damaged by the Mega Crush and all of those bombs, it shouldn't take very long at all to shoot down Bill Gates' executive stealth. Of the next three main stages, the desert is probably the easiest to approach. Only bombs are necessary for this mission, which are used to take out various ground targets. There are a lot of fast movers and helicopter formations in the first bit of the stage, of which the Eagles are a bit of a pain. Careful bomb strikes make things pretty manageable. Of the ground-based enemies though, the red missile battery is special. We found that bombing it from as high up on the screen as possible seems to be the only way to guarantee a blue energy capsule, though in this playthrough we managed to get one regardless. Paired with the blue capsule from the red helo formation, players should now be at level 4 cannon power. This is where the first large helicopter appears, armed with a rapid-fire missile launcher. A level 4 cannon can make quick work of this machine, but enemy tanks will also be firing from below. If things are taking a bit too long, a Mobichan can be uncovered in this little alcove, which can also dispatch a tank just beyond the wall. After another batch of helicopters, another small cave appears. Bomb the tanks and fly in while shooting to uncover the first star pickup. This star is worth $50,000. And will greatly assist in getting the F-200 later. From there, two more large helicopters will meet the player, supported by missile batteries and trucks. Once again, a level 4 cannon should make quick work of these guys. After a few more MiG-23 formations, it's on to the land carrier. Just before the boss approaches, the player can uncover a weapon replenisher in line with the plateau, though it won't serve much purpose in this playthrough. These pickups are useful for adding extra ammunition to the player's special weapons. The key to fighting the land carrier is using two different safe spots to avoid its guns and main missile battery. This will require the player to clear out 2 aircraft launchers and 4 VLS emplacements on the deck. Keeping the plane between the center line on the deck and the deck's lower edge, the carrier's guns will fire harmlessly overhead. Players will need to move forward and back to avoid getting hit by the VLS and planes launching, all while hitting them with cannon fire as they do so. A Mega Crush could also be used in this manner to damage the VLS in specific, though they'd all have to be open, which happens on approach. Timing would be critical. When they are all destroyed, pop up and fly in line with the plateau in the background. The main missile battery will fire harmlessly below the player and the guns won't aim upwards, allowing for an easy kill using the cannons only. This will take a little bit of time, but of course, patience is key. With the desert out of the way, we're heading into the forest. The Crusaders should be fully loaded for this one. Right off the hop, players are going to need to cut down and left to take out the 2 trees in the corner. Most of this stage will take place in the bottom half of the screen, and care will be needed not to be hit by both ground and air-based enemies approaching from behind. Various emplacements like these flamethrowers will block shots until they are destroyed, but with a level 4 cannon, it shouldn't take long. There are 3 hidden items in this stage, first among them being a star above a wide shaft that launches Yak-38s. That's another $50,000 for the F-200, but be careful not to get hit by these Harriers. Bombs are useful for certain portions of the stage like the mobile missile batteries and these Harriers here. The screen can get pretty crowded too, so don't be afraid to use a cluster if things are a bit too tightly packed, especially in this section with the Yak-38s and F-15s. There's a patch of VLS launchers near the end of the stage which will constantly deploy large missiles to catch the player in a vertical attack. These missiles can be killed off, but only half of the launchers can be destroyed. The others will need to be timed to get through. So long as all of the trees have been destroyed throughout the stage, a unicorn should appear here granting a shield. Then it's time for the fortress. The easiest approach requires players to fly over the tree line in such a way that the spread of their cannon just grazes the trees in the background. What this ends up doing is hitting the small cannons while passing over the exit hatch for the extra Yak-38s to be launched. They'll then get caught in the fire as they appear. The larger emplacements will take a bit more effort, but flying over them is easy enough to do. Just stay under or between their fire in the meantime. In the center area, a carefully timed Mega Crush will deal heavy damage to the core while neutralizing its missile patterns. Then, use the clusters to damage it further. A second pass is usually needed. Damage the next big gun as much as possible before flying over and swooping down to uncover the Capcom trademark Yahichi before getting ready to turn around. Use the same approach from the beginning of the fortress fight for the small guns to destroy them. The large gun should have been damaged enough on the first pass to destroy it with very little effort as well. Then, fly in line with the fire it leaves behind and shoot the main gun at the core, which should destroy it very quickly. You're done. In the grand scheme of things, the Forest Fortress is actually a very easy boss, especially taking the safe spots on approach into consideration. Once again, the Crusader's going to have to be fully equipped for this one. There's going to be a lot of fast movers like Eagles and MiG-21s mixed in with Foxbats and a healthy amount of Hinds. Thankfully, by this point, a level 5 cannon should be just a couple of pickups away. But the real threat during this onslaught is the missile boats that'll approach from the front and rear. They'll fire 4 consecutive missiles vertically at the player when they are above them. Carefully, the player can drop a bomb to take out these boats just ahead of the missiles' paths, but this of course takes practice. Once again, the BGM track is a good way to anticipate certain waves. It's not an especially long stage, but it could be best described as furious. Just after the background music loops, you'll know it's time to take on the battleship Minx. Right away, fly to the top right-hand corner of the screen and fire to uncover a hidden unicorn. This will be extremely helpful. Blast back down to the bottom left and line up the Crusader with the powerful main guns. It is possible to hit the first gun in a way that both it and the second gun's shots will sail right under the player's jet. These guns will take a lot of punishment, and a bunch of missile batteries and small guns will make things difficult by absorbing player shots. However, it is more than possible to kill both of these gun batteries in just one pass. When at the center of the ship, use the Mega Crush to take out all of the small stuff before attacking the other main guns with the clusters. The player will need to turn around to destroy the other two, but only one should be killed off. Heavily damage the last main gun, but keep it alive while trolling it to make it point in opposing directions without firing. The idea behind this is that there is a hidden star that can only be collected when certain portions of the ship have been chipped away, and it's very tricky to do with just one pass. It'll take a bit of time to get turned around, but once players do, they can get the star, then finish off the final main gun with bombs, if it's been damaged enough before swooping back. Either way, once it's gone, the stage ends and it's on to the other two moving stages. If everything has gone according to plan, the submarine CVET will have appeared on the map. It's only visible every second stage, so now is the time to take it out. Only the Mega Crush is needed for this fight, which consists of CVET and a bunch of randomly appearing Gripen fighters. Fire the Mega Crush for major damage and attack CVET's coning tower with what should be a level 5 cannon at this point. When CVET submerges, pause for a bit to assess its next attack. If it breaches, go wild. If it launches its vertical cluster missiles, wait for them to do their thing before threading through them at 45 degrees and clearing them out while being mindful of the constant Gripen appearances. This fight shouldn't take too long with these patterns in mind. With CVET out of the way, it's time to take on the next Air Force stage. A fully armed Crusader will be needed for this one. Using a plane like the F-20 is helpful with its Phoenix homing missiles, but not necessary, especially when playing for a fast F-200. Yak-38s and Harriers are all players will encounter in this stage. The Yaks will take a few hits before being taken down, while the Harriers will approach from the rear. Using bombs, these Harriers can be easily dispatched while dealing with the Yaks up front. This is a short stage, but it's easy to get overwhelmed. Reading the Yaks' patterns is going to be crucial in getting through as unharmed as possible, even after mastering bomb drops on the Harriers. The Wolf Pack consists of 3 F-117 Nighthawks, which will deploy trailing cluster bombs and large radius burst missiles. As the fight begins, launch the Mega Crush while focusing fire on any one of the 3, which should be able to destroy it by the time the Mega Crush resolves. Don't worry about their attacks, you'll be invincible during this process. Guns and clusters should be able to take out the other 2 very quickly with no issues. With the Wolf Pack out of commission, the next 2 stages will become available. Using the Crusader, players will only need the clusters and Mega Crush for this stage, but it's going to be brutal. The canyon is densely packed, mostly short, but throws a lot of opposition at the player. Fast movers like Foxbats and Eagles, rocket trucks, Hinds, and these light bombers that drop cluster bombs with tall flaming explosions means that there's never a dull moment, and very little in the way of safe spots. There are going to be 3 of these gun columns that need to be destroyed. The first has a star hidden in it, but it can be tricky to get. But so long as the Eagles are taken care of, it's not impossible. Blink and you'll miss it. After a little more opposition, a little further down, a second column will need to be taken out, though no star appears here. A third column will challenge players to a number of helicopters which will approach from the front and rear at the same time. Using one cluster here can take them all out while greatly damaging the column. A second star can also be found here. That's a total of $100,000 from this stage alone. And so long as the boss is taken out, the Ifrit can be purchased right after this mission. Players then make their way into the sky to face off against more fast movers. The MiG-21s can sometimes be hard to read, so just stay still while they make their path and then thread them. After 2 more fast movers, it's time to take on the SR-71. To be perfectly fair, the Crusader is not at all suited for this fight, but it's still more than possible to get the job done. The key threat of the SR-71 fight are these bursting clusters of missiles that will track the player. They may only track for a certain amount of time, but there's enough of them that they can cause problems. Ideally, the player should be able to trigger an afterburner attack that will fling the SR-71 off-screen, allowing for more cannon fire to land as it approaches back onto the playfield. It usually happens when I tailgate right up against it, but there's no guarantee that this can be manipulated at all, so be sure to use the clusters and Mega Crush only to clear missiles while shooting the SR-71 with a level 5 cannon. With enough practice, the missiles aren't really an issue, and eventually, the SR-71 will go down with gunfire alone. By this time, the player should have enough money to buy and arm the F-200. Finally, it's time to buy a new plane. Let's buy the F-200. The F-200 can use any weapon system, and it might be tempting to put it all on, but efficiency gets tossed right out the window. So we're just going to use the Phoenix, Gun Pod, and Mega Crush for this stage. The cave is generally regarded as the most difficult stage in this game thanks to its narrow corridors and relatively dense enemy opposition. Entering the cave, a number of foxbats and harriers will appear with small gun emplacements on the ceiling. Thankfully, there are limits to how high or low the player can be on screen, so the floor and high ceiling are always safe. Phoenix missiles will do a good job of taking out most of the enemies that will appear from behind, though these guys can be taken out with guns alone. The large gun emplacements and flamethrowers are a bit more challenging though, especially in this stalactite phase. Just pound away at them with Phoenix missiles and they should be taken care of quickly. A large vertical shaft will be littered with VTOL jets, but with a bit of memorization, players can thread through them without much issue. The next section, basically a small maze, takes a bit of precision, especially when going for power-ups, but generally speaking, it's manageable while attacking with Phoenix missiles. The Ifrit can be equipped with more than enough to get the job done. Another star can also be uncovered near the end of the maze, which will give the player a good influx of cash to arm the Ifrit for the final mission. The cave opens up after leaving the maze, and only a few small VTOL jets stand in your way before the final encounter. When you reach the conveyor, switch to the gun pod and get ready. The ceiling boss is a complete butthead, but it's easy to kill with a few interesting tactics and safe spots. On approach, hit the weak spot with the gun pod burst to get some damage in. Take out anything approaching from the right with cannon fire, then pop up to grab the hidden unicorn. Immediately go to the left, avoiding the flamethrowers, and drop to the floor while attacking with more gun pod. The player should be able to sneak under anything coming from the left, which can be destroyed with the gun pod while active. So long as a flamethrower isn't active, it can be passed underneath, but not when the nozzle is up. Taking care not to get hit with the flamethrowers on the boss itself, chip its health away with gun pods until it turns red. At this point, use a Mega Crush to jam yourself up beside the weak point, then nail it with level 6 fire. Clear away from the boss before the iframes run out, then do it again. It should inflict enough damage to kill the boss. Easy. This is the final stage, but not a ton of weaponry is going to be needed here. Equip Cluster, Phoenix, Bullpup, Thunder Laser, and Mega Crush. Get ready. On approach at the beginning of the stage, there's a lot of action, so players are going to need to stay alert. Keep clusters equipped and use them in the entrance shaft if needed. A Mobi-chan is hidden here, which can definitely help. The narrow corridor into the facility is going to be bristling with small gun emplacements, but even a level 6 spread will do a good job of clearing them out along with the accompanying harriers that will appear. The music can once again be used as a cue to graze the top of the tunnel on the left edge of the screen to allow a number of eagles to fly by underneath. There will be a small break between them until another flies past, so be careful. In the first part of the main facility, rocket boulders will fly up to crush the player while bombs tethered to the ceiling will drop down when the player is underneath them. These bombs are easy enough to clear out, allowing the boulders to be led to the other side of the screen based on the player's position. They can be shot and destroyed, but when they reach the top of the playfield, they'll drop down, split into 3, and rocket by faster. Thankfully, the smaller fragments are easier to kill than the larger boulders. More eagles will approach from the front and the rear, and the final 4-plane formation can be taken out with a cluster. Clusters can also be used to manage a large number of yaks, harriers, and tethered bombs in this spot here. Another Mobi-chan is also uncoverable, adding more punch to the offensive. The next part of the facility is a twisty corridor that will have a number of Harriers approach the player. Deal with them using Phoenix missiles. There's a hidden weapon replenisher in this space here, which is critical for obtaining a third Mega Crush. The Ifrit is the only plane that can carry 3. After a few more tethered bombs, a network of tracks will carry a bunch of gun turrets about the screen. These things will fire aggressively, so clusters are recommended. A hidden life-up can be found here as well. When the main tracked area is cleared, switch back to Phoenix and take out the last couple that appear. A hidden unicorn will usually be uncovered this way, so grab it as soon as it appears. After one final tunnel, it's time to take on the penultimate boss. Switch to Bullpup. This boss isn't terribly hard, but there will be a lot of missiles to contend with. Using the Bullpup, the small missile tubes that it drops to the floor can be easily taken out while also damaging the main ship. Players should also clear out the line of missiles that appear on the dorsal ridge. This fight won't take long, but then it's on to the final encounter. It seems menacing, but the fight with Project 4 is actually incredibly easy. Switch to Mega Crush. Shoot and destroy the nose straight away. Damage the first main gun until a bunch of shots almost reach you, then deploy the Mega Crush to gain invincibility. Continue shooting until it is destroyed, then move on to Gun 2, damaging it as much as possible. The tail fin can also be chewed away on this pass. The player will then turn around to fly under Project 4, destroy the bottom wing, then the next main gun, and deploy another Mega Crush while shooting the hover engine. It should be destroyed along with the final top gun, as long as it was damaged enough on the first pass. The player will then turn around again for another go, shoot and destroy the last gun on the bottom of the ship. When over Project 4, the core will be visible, so deploy the third Mega Crush to damage it and all of its defensive pistons. The remaining clusters can further damage the core while destroying the top pistons. On the second pass under Project 4, fire Phoenix missiles constantly to take out the rest of the pistons and hit the core. Continue this through the final turnaround while avoiding fire, and that should be it. If not, use Thunder Lasers or Bullpups to finish it off. These strategies should allow any player to get through UN Squadron not only as quickly as possible, but also on just one life. Since any stage the player dies in will need to be restarted from the beginning anyway, any one stage has to be done in its entirety in order to be completed as it is. However, a number of extents will allow the player several tries in the more challenging stages such as Minx, the Canyon, or the Mountain Cave, giving players a solid chance at a 1cc, even on normal. It's not as hard as some people might think, and if I can do it with literally one hand tied behind my back, as you just witnessed, anyone can do it with a much more accurate and capable standard pad. Now it's time to take it even further, with a one-handed hard clear, oh my god. I'm not sure I'm proficient enough just yet to do another one of these guides, but Galaga 88 might be a fun one. I won't be taking requests on this video style though, but of the games I'm most proficient at, I may return to this concept in the future. What did you think? Was this guide helpful in getting better in UN Squadron? Let me know. I'll be doing a run just like this live during Shmup Slam 4 on August 15th at 12:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. One-handed, of course. Until then, we'll see you all in the next episode.